There are certain fictional characters that have taken on such a significant role in our culture that it's difficult to portray them as anything other than the abbreviated symbol they've become. And a symbol like this has gone on to mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Civil rights, political activism, and social justice. But it's important to understand the character and the history behind those symbols. So let's take a step back and look at the origins of Diana Prince, the Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman made her first appearance in the pages of All-Star Comics number 8, but unlike Superman and Batman who received cover positions for their debut, Wonder Woman only appeared as a backup character, showing up in just the last 8 pages of the 70-page book, before eventually graduating to the cover of Sensation Comics number 1 a year later. And it's in that book that artist H.G. Peter and writer William Moulton Marston created what would become the central pillar of the DC Trinity, as well as becoming one of the most iconic characters in the world. And all this began in 1940, when Marston, a Harvard-educated lawyer and psychologist, was offered the position of educational consultant at DC Comics after Superman publisher MC Gaines read an article in the Family Circle where Marston addressed the untapped teaching potential of the comics medium. And Marsden wasn't a writer, but he recognized the market for a female character in a predominantly male-focused industry and offered what he called an antidote to the blood-curdling images of masculinity within the superhero genre. So this Wonder Woman was meant to give a different perspective to the typical comic book reader demographic. And Marsden wanted her to be an amalgam of the 2 most important women in his life, combining the attributes of his wife, Elizabeth Holloway Marston, with those of Olive Byrne, one of his former students who later became the couple's lover. And on top of creating Wonder Woman, this was the trio whose studies formed the basis of the modern polygraph with their systolic blood pressure test. After America's entry into World War I, Marsden attempted to interest the Committee on Psychology at the National Research Council in their work and its potential to detect espionage. And that concept was later incorporated into Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, which in its original incarnation only compelled obedience. And acts of binding, tying, and restraining played a big part in a lot of those early Wonder Woman stories because, as well as being a lawyer, psychologist, and inventor, Marsden was also a very enthusiastic bondage fetishist. If that wasn't obvious given that Diana is either bound, chained, or gagged on the cover of the majority of her books. But that was also an attempt to combat the damsel in distress trope that was so commonly found in comics of those days. She's the one that had to free herself from those restraints, liberating herself from oppression alone. And a lot of that was partly inspired by the abolitionist campaigns of the previous century, as well as iconography used in the women's suffrage movement, which Marston, Elizabeth, and Olive were very heavily involved in. And their first wave feminist ideologies really helped shape the core of that character, which is why many people even today still take issue with Wonder Woman's induction into Gardner Fox's Justice Society of America in All-Star Comics number 13, where she formally became the team's secretary. And this, of course, was a decision fueled by sexism that backtracked everything the character stood for and ignored the original creator's vision. Except, no, it wasn't any of that. In fact, this was Marsden's decision, having demanded final cut over Wonder Woman's plot and dialogue during her time in the JSA, despite the fact he was already busy writing her as the central character in 3 other books. So a story was devised to keep Diana on the sidelines of All-Star Comics so that Marsden could focus on showing her full potential in the pages of Wonder Woman, Sensation Comics, and Comic Cavalcade. There was no chauvinistic agenda behind that piece of history that so many people attribute to sexism. This was just an artist wanting to retain creative control over his creation. And that's not to say there haven't been any missteps in that character's history, because there have been quite a few. But it's about the growth that character has undergone over the years, and how she, more than any other character of that era, really evolved with the culture and became something much bigger than what Marsden had originally envisioned. A woman from a foreign land wrapped in the American flag, coming to defend and protect the values of a world her people turned their back on, because she saw something worth saving. That's more relevant today than ever before, which is why it's so surprising that Wonder Woman has had very little representation in mainstream media compared to her contemporaries. There have been dozens of standalone Batman and Superman live-action films, dozens of standalone animated films, and dozens of television shows. Superman has had 15 standalone video games on various platforms, and Batman has had 38. You want to guess how many Wonder Woman games there have been? 0. Not a single one. No Castlevania-style platformer from the late 80s, no Wonder Woman skin God of War ripoff, nothing. What she has had is one made-for-television movie, which is essentially Wonder Woman in name and nothing else, one 3-season television series from the 70s, one direct-to-video animated film, and after 76 years, she'll finally be getting her first theatrical film this June. It's strange that a character with so much cultural influence has been largely left out of that culture for so long, and the argument has always been made that Wonder Woman isn't as marketable because she's not as familiar a character as Batman or Superman, but that's only because she's never had the chance to be. The world needs more Wonder Woman because we need more people like Wonder Woman, a champion of self-confidence, compassion, and tolerance, and a reflection of all the progress we've achieved as a society. And when you distill all those values into that logo, then you have a symbol with purpose. I'd like to thank the good people over at Verve for sponsoring this week's episode. Verve is a new video streaming service that's home to some of the best anime, gaming, sci-fi, and fantasy content on the web. You can download the Verve app today and try out a 7-day free trial of their combo pack and get access to all your favorite channels like Crunchyroll, Funimation, and Rooster Teeth, all ad-free and in HD right from your Xbox, PlayStation, iOS, and Android devices. And with Verve, you can catch up on the brand new season of Attack on Titan, or if you need something to tide you over until the return of Rick and Morty, I'd recommend checking out Harmon Quest from series creator Dan Harmon over on the CISO channel. Sign up today at verve.co/combo pack, that's vrv.co/combo pack, or click the link in the description below, and let me know what you're watching.